Hey y'all, my name is Ashley Davenport and I am the Area Director in Young Life South Arlington.
And my name is Ann Walsh, and I am the committee chair for South Arlington.
Great. Hey y'all, today we're going to talk to you all about the importance of roles on committee. And we hope that by sharing a little bit of our story and honestly where we have fumbled, that you guys will be encouraged and be able to set up various roles on your own committee. Do you remember our first committee meeting, and can you tell us a little bit about the general attitudes of committee coming in? I was coming in as a new area director, and what you guys were expecting from me, and then I'll do the same on my end.
Okay. So our morale was quite low, actually. We had really liked our previous area director, and we're really sad to see him go. And even before that, though, I think we were a small group, maybe about 6, I think. And we pretty much acted as a kind of like a sounding board for the area director. Like at our meetings, he would come to the meeting and he would do most of the talking, and then we would sort of listen, and that was pretty much it. I mean, we might ask some questions, obviously. Our role primarily was to have fundraising events, which none of us liked to do, and that we had limited success. Mm-hmm. So everybody was pretty discouraged, actually. We were pretty low. And so when Ashley came, we were sort of looking for, okay, maybe she'll help us know what to do here. We need a leader here. So that's kind of where we were.
And we just hope that from our experience that we can kind of tell you how we got this committee that was low morale, feeling a little bit defeated, a little discouraged, with an area director that had no idea what she was doing, to a place where we now function and have roles and are doing a really great job. And so if you come to this training and you're like, we're lost, you're in good company. That was us. Yeah. So praise God. We want to answer a couple of questions today about committee around roles. And if you're taking notes, here are the 3 questions we're going to answer. It's, what does your committee need? We're going to talk about how you can find out what those needs even are, because you don't know what you don't know. The second question is, what does your committee already have? And then the third question will be, who does your committee need to recruit? You might be asking, what is committee? What are committee roles? How do we figure out what we need? This is kind of what we did, and hopefully it'll help. We said, let's learn from other committees that are doing it well. So we asked the regional leadership team, hey, we're trying to figure out what committee is and how we should set ours up. What committees in the region are doing it well? And Annika was really helpful in that. She said, hey, here are some committees that are doing great. And I asked other staff people too, like, how's your committee? Are you guys doing well? Kind of compiled a list. And then we just systematically started setting up meetings with those committee chairs and staff to ask questions and tell them we need help. And so we were honest with the state of our committee, and we just asked them, how do you run your committee? And we took copious notes. I probably have pages and pages of notes of this. What is committee? And I would go back and I'd be like, this is what I'm learning. And we would go from there. And it was really cool to see what roles that they had, because even us, we went to different committees in the region and every committee was different, but there were some things that were similar across the board. The second thing we did, and I'm going to have Ann kind of chime in on this a little bit, is we went and sat in on a few committee meetings. So it was one thing to say, tell me about your committee meeting. But as we always talk about in Young Life, we're a come and see type of ministry. And so we were like, well, we don't know what we're doing. Maybe we should go see what's happening. And I cannot stress how important it was. It wasn't just the committee chair that we took, but we took various committee members to various different committee meetings. And we were hopeful that it would cast vision. And then those committee members would come back, and when we would have our meetings, it was, hey, report on what you saw. And I think you went with us to Ashburn's committee meeting.
Right.
What did you learn there? What did you see there that kind of stood out for you?
Right, right. Well, it was one thing that stood out to me was it was so much bigger than ours. Like there was probably, I don't know, 20 people there or something.
Right. Yeah.
And ours is like, even now we're small. We're like, I think we've got 9 on
Yeah.
our committee.
Mhm.
So, but also a big takeaway from that was that the area director hardly spoke at all. I mean, he was just, he was a part of the meeting, obviously, but he wasn't the center of the meeting. You know, the committee chair was running the meeting, and then everybody, not everybody, but most people had some kind of role in the meeting to report about or something.
Other thing that's huge is look online. We looked online, and I know we know this, and sometimes the staff resources and volunteer resources can be hard to navigate, but it's a wealth of resources. And so if you're taking notes, again, I would say literally write down committee job descriptions, because if you type that into the search engine, there's a whole page that comes up and it gives you descriptions that are not only specific and helpful, but they are job descriptions themselves, and they put them in categories. Again, I would say the caution here is you don't have to do what they say, because you might find out that what's highly needed for your committee might be different than what's needed for another committee. And the thing that we did to figure out that, one resource you can do to figure out what are the actual high priority roles that we need on our committee would be doing a territory analysis. And so this is not like what you would think of in sales as a territory analysis. In this setting, it's simply a strategic listening process where you're figuring out what your area, your specific area needs. What are the biggest strengths? What are your biggest weaknesses as an area? And it really helps you say, okay, where are we at? And kind of survey the land, put your ear to the ground, and assess not only where your committee is. I think that's something vital. We're not just doing this with committee, we're doing this area wide. And so it's a lot of work. It's not something that you get done in a day. I think for us, it was a 3-month process. And I know you might hear that and be like, what? But it's totally worth it. Holistic view of what does our area look like from all sides. And that helped us because we had teams, and we would sit down with team leaders and realize that those team leaders were completely burnt out. Or we would sit down with, committee members even, and figure out that they have been doing fundraising, kind of like Ann said, but that they didn't really want to be doing fundraising. And so this was just kind of our way of taking your specific context into account. And an example of this is maybe you have a committee that one of your biggest needs in the area is a deficit in fundraising. If that's the case, if you have a huge deficit in fundraising and you don't really have a fundraising chair, or you don't have an events chair, those would kind of be high priority to get sooner rather than later. Or maybe your area has a staff associate, but you don't have an area director. Or maybe you have an area director, but your area director isn't good administratively. Those are things that aren't going to come up unless you do the assessment of the people that you have. And you might say, okay, well, we only have a staff associate that we're paying to be with kids, or we have this area director that's great, but it's not really great administratively. That might tell you in our committee chair, we might need a committee chair that's more visionary. We might need a committee chair that's more fill in the blank, whatever your need is. So I think I can't stress enough the importance of doing your own territory analysis of where your area stands, so that you can identify the greatest needs and put roles to fill those needs. Ann, do you have any input on that? What do you think about that? I remember we did the territory analysis and there.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, no, that was very helpful. And I think I think it was really good just to sort of hold the need and not feel the burning urge to fill it. right away.
That's a
You
good,
know what I mean?
yeah.
Just to identify it,
Hmm.
pray and wait, not try to push somebody into something that's not comfortable just because there's a need.
So step one, identify what your area needs as far as roles. The second step would be asking yourself, what do we already have? What gifts and talents has the Lord blessed the people who have already volunteered to come alongside? I think sometimes it's very easy for us to identify the needs and then look at a huge deficit and be like, oh my gosh, we don't have anything. And I love that this second step is following right after that of like, no, identify what you need and then now see what do you already have. And so one of the things we did with that is sit down with all your different committee members and I would say your staff and figure out what is their current experience and make sure that you create a safe space for them to be honest and not just because I think it's easy to be like, yeah, committee's going great. And they smile and they nod. And it's just like, it's great, great, great. And I'm like, okay, no. How are you feeling about your current role on committee if they have a role? If they don't have a role, and tell them, give them permission to be like, and it's okay if you don't like it. But it's great if you do, like listen to what they said and kind of get to what do you do for work? Asking people, what are you passionate about? Like, what gets you excited? Where do you think God has gifted you? What gifts do you think that you have that are lying dormant? And as you're listening, think about how those gifts could be used in the kingdom and in particularly in your area. You want to place people in roles that are conducive to where God has gifted them, as opposed to, like Ann mentioned earlier, well, we have this need for this role, and so everybody needs to become fundraisers. That's not life-giving. People aren't going to stick around to do that kind of thing. And I think that was kind of what contributed to our morale being low.
And I'm going to interject one thing here. I don't want to get off track, but I was thinking about also, we have this, Young Life has their roles, which are really good and helpful. But I remember for one committee member, we sort of created a role for her. It was like we had a need, she had gifts, and it wasn't really a specific role that Young Life had created, but we needed it, and she had the gifts, and it's worked out beautifully. Right.
Thank you so much for bringing that out because it was huge. I think a few notes here and takeaways is sometimes God will use you, whether it's the volunteer committee chair or it's the staff person, to reveal gifts in people that they don't see in themselves. And so I think everybody has their idea what committee is. And I think just be really discerning and prayerful through this process and say, Lord, show us what we already have. And remember that this is a ministry to our volunteers as much as it is to our kids. And ask God to give you discernment with people. Sometimes you'll have to prod them more than they will volunteer, in the sense of sometimes as I was sitting down with people and listening to them, I could hear them perk up and get excited about something. And I knew as the area director, because I was doing this territory analysis, what we needed. And I was like, hey, what about this? And sometimes people would be like, ah. And other times they would be really excited. And I think that was even the case with Ann. I was prayerful. I don't think I can stress enough how much you should be prayerful in this process. And on all things ministry, you should be prayerful. And I remember the Lord just showing me, I was like, hey, I hear that we're supposed to have a committee chair. Who do we have? And I felt like the Lord really placed Ann on my heart. And so I asked Ann to go to dinner, and I think she thought it was just like a get to know you dinner. And I was like, I have a proposition for you.
Yeah.
Will you be our committee chair? And I think that Ann was floored and was just like, what? Like, what is that? And I just knew that, again, knowing myself, I was like, I think I told her, I just need a friend.
Yeah, she did. She
And
suckered me in.
I know. And I don't think Ann would have volunteered for the committee chair. Like, I don't know. What was your experience there? Would you have ever said, sign me up for committee chair?
Probably not. Because I had a different impression of what a committee chair was supposed to be, you
Yeah.
know? And then I think as we talked, I think you helped point out to me that, you know, that I did have some of the qualities of a committee chair, but it wasn't what I would necessarily have thought of a committee chair.
Yeah. So
So,
sometimes you have to listen to people and see things and almost hold a crown over somebody's head and say, I see you growing into this. And for me, I think what's important between Ann and I's relationship, and I can't stress this enough, is your area director and your committee chair should, one, they should get along really well. And two, I think Ann and I balance each other out really, really well. And I have a degree in business. So I am very much a visionary. I'm very much a go-getter and want to do all the things. And I think where Ann has really helped me, Ann is one of those quiet leaders. And she has a strength in her that's very modest and very humble. And what she's helped me do is she'll come alongside and say, hey, Ash, how's your time with the Lord? Because sometimes I can just run and get on a hamster wheel and do things in my own strength. And she kind of rears me back in that, or will just give me subtle reminders. And I don't know, I think Ann cares for me really well. And I think she leads our team really well. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well, is after you kind of figure out what you have, it's like, I don't know, baking. It's like, we just need a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And it makes something beautiful that's unique to your area. So if I had a key takeaway here, is you identify what you have, it would be, do not make people do something they're not called to do just because you're in need of that spot being filled. Sure, there are times that God will call you to hold a crown over someone's head, but we are never called to force people to do things for our own benefit or just because we're desperate. That is a recipe for disaster. On the contrary, if you do your first step of what do we need, identifying what you need, and you do the second step and you figure out that, hey, we have really great gifts, but we still have this huge need. It's not time to place people where they don't fit. It's time to pray. And it's time to, and we want to ask, who do we need to recruit? And so you figured out what you need, you figure out who you have, and now it's time to ask yourself that question, like, where are the holes? And since you've plugged holes with the people where they fit, and you haven't plugged holes with unnecessary people, you get to recruit people. And this is where you have writing job descriptions is very helpful. You've already compiled job descriptions from other people, and you've already done your territory analysis, so you can tweak those job descriptions for what you need. And ask God, hey, Lord, we need you to fill the roles. And I would create even a one-pager. We have this for our area, created one-pager of the roles that we've identified that are necessary and even hopeful roles of, you know, we needed a prayer chair and we wanted like a parent coordinator. I think that's an absence that we see that we would like in our area right now. We have it on a one-pager, and every time I'm going to meetings, I am putting that in front of people, because people are always like, well, where do you need help? I'm like, hey, I thought you were going to be a leader. You don't actually have time to be a leader, but do you see yourself in any of these things? And even listening to other people's gifts that are trying to come in and volunteer, that the Lord leads you to. And so use your newsletters for that as well. Of like, hey, we're looking for, blah, 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 blah. Send out an email and pray, and watch God work and watch him shape this into what it needs to look like for your area. I would say we started out with 6 people. We actually lost committee members at first who we sat down with them. And honestly, as we listened, what was best, a gift for them and honestly a gift for the committee, was to say, hey, you can be released from this. You're not chained to committee. You can leave, and we love you, and that's okay. And granted, that leaves a hole for us, but it also opens up an opportunity for somewhere else to serve. And and I didn't kind of putting you on the spot here, but how do you feel going into our committee leading meetings now? I think first, we were talking about we had low morale. The area director kind of did all the talking. What does it look like now?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's totally different.
Yeah.
Now when we have a meeting, I mean, it's very, like I say, very collaborative, a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
And, everybody's something to contribute. And I mean, I'm just so grateful now for the way things are now. It's just it just feels totally different. Now we have an ownership of it. Before we didn't have any ownership. We were just sort of there.
Mm-hmm.
And now we feel ownership, and yeah, I'd say that's the best word, ownership. And we feel like we're really partners.
Yeah.
And not just observers.
Yeah. And I feel that. I would say that be encouraged. Maybe you're an area director watching this and you're like, I have no committee and it's just me. I'm being honest with you. That first year, I felt like I was every committee role. I know. That's just where we were. But I put that as one of my top 3 goals. We set goals as staff members, and that was one of my top 3 goals of we got to get committee members to identify their roles.
Yeah.
And 1 year, that was the goal.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, they had roles, but they had no idea what they were doing. So the next year, my goal was I'm going to train these committee members of what their roles are,
right.
And put them into contact. And this year, this is year 3, we are really empowering and unleashing these committee members to do their roles. I talk very little. Ann puts together the agenda. I had to run a committee meeting maybe a month ago and was just like, it's weird. I don't usually have to do this because other people are usually in it. And it's just been phenomenal. I told Ann before we started recording, there was our newest, I guess, embodied committee role would be our volunteer leader care. And the woman who took this role was made for stuff like this. I told Ann, I said, it's always been my heart to take care of our leaders really well, but I'm just not good at it. In the sense of I'm just I really want to really make them feel appreciated. But when it comes to I don't know, making gifts that are personalized and pretty, I'm just happy birthday, love you. And usually it's a couple days late. And now we have set up not just a role on committee, but we even have a subcommittee from that, which we didn't even talk about subcommittees. There are some roles that you need there are people who want to volunteer that they don't want to be at the meeting every month, but they can do something. And so we have this subcommittee of people who just care for our leaders that have said, hey, we want to just it would be a gift for them to sit across from a leader and hear what's going on in ministry and just pray for them and lift up their arms. And so I think when I came in as an area director, I felt like I had to do everything on my own. And now I feel like I have been freed up to empower other people to do the work and for me to do what I'm supposed to do in my role. And I can actually think about the next school. I was on a prayer walk the other day and was very grateful. I was like, God, I can envision and dream a little bit more because I'm not so clouded with doing things that really I'm not supposed to be doing. So just as grateful as I think Ann just said she was for me. I'm super grateful for her and everybody on our committee. We believe that this can be your story too. And so we are just encouraged and we are hopeful that hopefully something we said will help you along the way. Again, identify what do you need as far as roles, identify what do you already have in regards to gifts that can fill different roles or even fill roles that you didn't even know you had, or maybe Young Life hasn't even identified yet. And third, who are you looking for? And I think the one other thing that I said as I was going through that I would say here is make sure you have descriptions on paper so that when you're sitting across from people, they can know what they're agreeing to and know whether they can say yes or no. You want to make it easy for somebody to say yes. I think the next step of 2 of what we're doing, we just got another committee person set in a role. We gave her committee job description, and then I was able to say, here are my goals as an area director. given this job description, given the goals that I have in this area and things that we're focused on in this area, how do you see yourself fitting in? And she literally has come back and be like, this is monthly what you can expect for a report from me. This is how I can see what we're doing. I think that when it's clear, people know what they're doing and they can then have freedom to run in their lane however they want to. And so I think that's all we have. I don't know, Anne, do you have anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Just, yeah.
We wish y'all Godspeed. If you need anything or you want to know different roles we have on committee, we'd be happy to send those to you. And we're here. So hope this was helpful.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye.